Hello, everyone. My name is AJ Koftik. I'm a digital product strategist with Expedient. Today with me, I have Anthony Jackman, our chief technologist, Ivo Muris, a senior product manager from VMware, and Gabe Knuth, a senior product line marketing manager, also from VMware. Today, we want to help you skip all the architecting and get to using Horizon with Expedient Enterprise Workspace. Um, we kind of have to take this back to the beginning. Like, why would Expedient, a cloud service provider, we support tens of thousands of virtual machines, have a number of security tools and storage and cloud native. What gets us into end user workspace things? And being a VMware cloud provider kind of led us towards that. But we have to think back to the beginning. And really, between COVID and remote work, everything has changed, right? We've had a number of customers who have talked to us about what they're going through and their remote work. But when we sit back and think about it, we wanted to take a bigger picture look at this. And we see that remote work has fully changed all of this. And that's kind of sort of the silver lining of the pandemic, right? Workplaces were finally forced to figure out work from home options. At Expedient, we have 12 data centers. We have folks that stayed inside those data centers or worked in our data centers throughout the pandemic, making sure that everything was supported, running smoothly. And if customers needed to have hard drives replaced or anything in their gear that was inside of our data centers, that they were able to have those things taken care of. But for the rest of the organization, we were able to move back to this remote work option. And it worked. In fact, 2 months into the pandemic ish, on an all hands call, our CEO actually got on and said, I got to be really honest, everyone. I didn't think this was going to work. I thought, honestly, this isn't going to be a thing. This was going to lower our productivity, that we needed to be in the offices, we needed to be near each other. And it turns out that that wasn't the case at all. It actually worked out really well. How did that happen, though? Collaboration tooling got better. Things like WebEx, and Teams, and Zoom, and Slack, even things like Discord started to get used for work purposes. Microsoft Office 365 is a suite, Google Workspace. All of these platforms got better. They had a ton of investment put into them. In fact, if you go look at Microsoft's roadmap, which is available, go Google Office 365 roadmap, go pull up just Teams, and it's a solid 20 some percent of all of their future roadmap is just Teams, right? So all of this collaboration tooling got better. And this work from home allowed organizations to actually see what workplace flexibility would really look like, right? Does it matter that I'm at home or in the office or at a coffee shop or traveling to a client or traveling to a conference? Does it matter where I am? No, actually, it doesn't. Because we can collaborate so well, because all of this tooling really works, we're able to do this. We're also able to go after remote talent. Previously, we've honestly been fairly focused on talent that's in our backyard, within 50-ish miles of any of our data centers or markets. But that's not where all the talent is, right? We have plenty of talent in our backyard, but we want the best available talent. And that's not always in places where we have four walls that you can go to and sit in a queue. We want to be able to hire people from, more rural areas or areas where we're not necessarily in that market. And so being able to get best of breed remote talent has actually been really, really helpful. And Anthony, when we've talked through this, and what we've both seen is that this workplace flexibility actually allows us to be happier overall.
Yeah, it does. And that's the big one I want to touch on is flexibility. This is what I hear from almost every client. Yes, an increasing number of clients are interested in enabling the remote work from home workforce 100%, but that's not every client. But something I do hear from almost every client is I need to be flexible so that I can adjust as the market adjusts or as the climate of my business adjusts to make my users be able to be productive to meet the needs of my business. And I want to forget about where they work and know that they're going to have a consistent experience, and that also my infrastructure is secured. And as the users change location, there's no difference to my security posture.
And that's really, really important because when we start to look at all of this remote work, we've discovered new problems, right? one of the big problems is that data storage and compliance are massive concerns, right? I have all of this data that used to be inside of my four walls and never left them, now inside of many, many different four walls. How do I make sure that all of those workspaces are compliant? All of those endpoints are compliant? How do I make sure that all that data is stored securely? Especially if you're in the healthcare, financial services, and retail spaces, you likely have access to sensitive data. So, how do you make sure that all of that is set and compliant? How do you patch and maintain a distributed fleet? Patching is relatively easy because you can just send them direct to the vendor of choice. If they're on Macs, they go to Apple. If they're on Windows, they go to Microsoft's patching systems. But maintaining a distributed fleet becomes harder. Instead of being down the hall, if your laptop dies and you get a new one, you actually have to mail this laptop to someone to be fixed, or someone has to send you a new laptop. That's downtime for employees that wasn't really ever needed to be considered before because you can always just pull a loaner laptop or something like that. But there's also things like latency and application performance problems. Most legacy applications were not designed with everybody working from home in mind. They were designed with everybody working in one singular office, connecting to applications that were also in that office. So they have 1 to 2 milliseconds of latency in mind, not 25 to 30 milliseconds of latency. And so that can lead to massive performance problems that no one ever saw coming because no one's ever tried to test mass using the application from not the office. But also, how do you figure out hybrid work options? Companies want to return to the office. Some companies don't want to return to the office. Some companies want a mix of both. I happen to like going into the office from time to time to see my coworkers, but I also recognize that working remotely is really important and being able to be home all the time. How do you actually enable that and enable a consistent experience and even be able to take on things like seasonal workers? Is there a way that you can actually take that on? And I think Evo and Gabe will smile. This is the talk track of the last probably 5 years of VMworld in terms of hybrid workforce, modern workforce. These are all of those talking points. And Anthony, when we looked at this, I think the big one was the one in the middle around latency and application performance. And how do we help users with
Yeah, that one's top of mind for us because we've been a provider of server infrastructure for years to our clients, and we understand that if the users feel any type of pain, that we're going to hear about it. And internally, our own users are very focused on it. So what we really allow you to do here is have flexibility to locate your workload right alongside your desktops. If that's important to you, you can co-locate your server workloads right alongside your desktops and understand that they're going to be in the same building. At the same time, if some things are on your site, we can connect those very flexibly, so that if you don't have that sub millisecond requirement, you can still consume your server workload at your site or whatever cloud it makes sense on. So we continue to enable a lot of flexibility.
that? And I think when we start to look at this, how do you enable that flexibility? A lot of this has largely been solved by things like VDI, but VDI is heavy. Even with Horizon, there's a lot of moving pieces. You have security servers and connection servers, load balancers, vCenters, hosts, and all of that requires a CapEx investment up front. It requires you to go buy a bunch of hardware because you can't just put VDI on top of your existing ESXi environment and hope for the best, right? That's a recipe for terrible performance. You have to go get all the licensing. All of these things become big upfront purchases. And then we add in things like skill sets. And in our estimation, running a good, proper VDI environment generally requires 1 to 2 FTEs and their full time effort to be able to do that. And then you add on all of the additional maintenance. You got to patch your UAGs, connection servers, vCenters, hosts, load balancers, firewalls. All of these things require additional maintenance on top of a relatively full plate that's coming from our existing admins. So, Anthony, I think when we focus on this, what we always do in terms of our product set is focus on how do we enable and solve problems and keep the lights on so that admins can focus on bigger problems.
Yeah, we like to enable our users to have ease of consumption, and we want to enable them to focus on the things that are really important to them. And if their company is not in the business of managing VDI infrastructure, maybe their cycles are better spent on things closer to their users. And what we found with all but the absolute largest clients that we speak to is that the VDI administration portion of it doesn't have the appropriate resources allocated. Even if they dedicate an administrator to that up front, what they find is they build a platform, it eats 100% of their time, they patch it a couple times, and it reaches steady state, and it's not consuming 8 hours a day of their time. So they get pulled over to other projects. Then a VDI patch cycle comes up or an issue comes up, and you have resource contention, and the clients are running into issues. And this is really where we think Expedient can step in and help.
And all of this is before you land your first user, which I think is the real fun part is I have to do all this work before I can even do anything. So why don't we skip all that? And this is where Expedient Enterprise Workspaces comes in. This is our brand new virtual desktop infrastructure as a service, fully managed by Expedient. So you don't have to worry about the patching and maintenance of the infrastructure so you can focus your value at a higher level. This is powered by the VMware Horizon DaaS platform. That's slightly different than the Horizon View platform that you would have on premises because it's built for service providers. We have a provider level view, and then each individual tenant becomes the administrator of just their desktops for just the desktops that they need. So you don't have to buy 20 to 30% headroom. You can only pay for the desktops that you're actually in need of, and not 100 desktops now with the potential to grow to 400. You just pay for those 100 today. We eliminate all of the upfront capex. So all of the things like buying hosts and vCenters and software and licenses, we've already taken care of all that. It's already built. In fact, we have a fantastic team of engineers who have put all this together so that it can be made available directly to you. So all you have to do is build your desktops. We also offer free sizing assessments and ongoing performance tuning with Lakeside Software. We've partnered with them so that you can size your desktops right the first time. So things like how much CPU do my users use? How much memory do they actually use? How much networking do they actually use? How much network traffic and bandwidth do they actually use? This is a way for you to determine that upfront before you build a single pool so that you know that your pool is built right and sized right for your users upfront. And then as time goes on, you're able to watch the performance and make sure that everything runs at top peak speed. We also offer this with a predictable monthly cost. You pay per desktop every single month. But that cost is set at a resource pool type level. So if you need 100 desktops, you pay for 100 desktops. You don't have to pay for 100 with the potential to grow to 500. You don't have to pay for 101 or 98. You pay for 100 every single month. And so your CIOs and CFOs go to sleep at night knowing that they can forecast that usage no matter what. And there's no egress fees, so the budget doesn't bounce all over the place and spike based on how much data your users actually used. We also offer full desktop OS support for Windows 10 and the upcoming Windows 11. So your software that runs on Windows desktop OSs today will continue to run that way going forward. There's no server OS with a desktop experience slapped on top of it. It's full Windows 10 and soon to come Windows 11. And we also offer integration to file services and our cloud integrations. And Evo and Gabe, I kind of want to talk through how this plays into the overall Horizon and VMware Cloud Provider ecosystem. And Gabe, kind of talk through where Horizon really fit in and why Horizon was the best choice for this.
Yeah, thanks, AJ. This is VMware has been built as a platform to address all of this remote work. I love your comment earlier. Where you're like, yeah, we've been talking about this stuff for 5 years. It's because this is what we set our vision on: is to build this platform that can allow users to work from anywhere and stay productive, and to allow service providers to build solutions around it. The fact is that we though we've been talking about it for that long, this demand for remote work has really kind of shown the light of day onto all the stuff that we've been doing. Obviously, everybody's been really interested in uh, remote work for or desktop virtualization and business continuity over the last year and a half or so. Um, our approach to do that, you go ahead and move on to the next, or just build the whole thing out, frankly, if you want. Um, our approach to that hasn't really changed over the years, but the way that customers are looking at it has. And so some customers, especially the ones that have been doing VDI for most of their organization, the higher percentages of their users, were able to weather the storm pretty well. helping out the remote workers, as they increasingly went out there. And we heard from customers that up to 80% of their workforce went remote. Other customers that maybe didn't have any desktop virtualization or maybe only had a little small fraction of their organization using desktop virtualization are still finding their way trying to keep things working. And I'll tell you, um, I haven't heard of these kinds of things in a while now, but and Evo, I'm sure you have heard things as well. Um, Early on in this world, March, April of 2020, I got calls from neighbors that were saying, "Hey, work said that I ran out of loaner laptops, and so I either have to go into the office to get my PC and bring it home and set it all up at home, or they said we can VPN in with some old laptop. So I found an old laptop in the closet, and can you help me get it set up?" And so I get this thing. I walk. I go over to this neighbor's house. It is a Windows Vista era laptop. It is, it was, it was gigantic. It was 17 inches, like it was a boat anchor, right? It was an old laptop.
Can I
Um,
ask a question? When you hit the power button, did it just poof and have a bunch of dust go flying out of the
fly
side?
out of it, yeah. It was one of those HP ones that looked like it had the tattoos on it. If you remember that era, but it was huge, and it was Vista, right? So it took like 10 minutes to boot up, and so by the time we get it booted up, there's no updates. You can't even update the thing anymore. Like unsupported OS. Um, so we had to try to get the VPN client to work on it. The VPN client didn't want to do Vista, so we're like, I've spent my entire career bending things to do my will. So like we get the VPN client to start installing. But even then, like this was the solution that this company came up with. I realized we all had to make quick decisions and react as quickly as we could. But think about this: like unsupported operating system, full VPN into the organization, and then she was using that to RDP into her desktop at the company. So it, it wasn't just RDP in through some gateway or some remote desktop connection. It was full carte blanche access to the inside of the network with an unsupported, unsecured device. If that's what they did, that's inviting disaster. And so those are the companies that I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of those ones that were finding their way. And thankfully, all of that has changed for everybody I've talked to over time. But we made a lot of, I don't know if I want to call them bad decisions, but we made a lot of snap judgments, snap decisions in the effort to keep businesses going. And that is something that these companies had never had to consider before. So what we learned there is, with everybody working remote, that you don't just need to figure out a way to get access to the desktops and applications. You need a way to make sure that the endpoints are that we can access these from any endpoints, that those endpoints are secure, that there's a broader strategy involved than just like fire up your Vista laptop, VPN in, and go to town. Um, at VMware, we have focused our entire EUC landscape on that. And so we found that having all these different vendors makes this more difficult. But with VMware, with Horizon, with Workspace One, with the Horizon clients, and all the capabilities that are built into that, this is the right product line at the right time. Evo, I would love to have. We could do a whole 45-minute session on like nightmare stories, but I don't know if you have
Absolutely.
any that you can relate to.
Well, I mean, I'm just piggybacking on what you just said, Gabe, and where we from a product Vista have gone, and COVID has only accelerated that conversation. And maybe even, and I can remember VMware employees saying, well, this year is going to be the year of VDI. We have always said, I mean, this year is very probably going to be the year of desktop as a service. And we're seeing this across the board.
Yeah,
Um, the key thing here is always, I mean, make it secure, making sure that from our cloud provider partners like Expedient, we allow them to make this operationally efficient and transparent, so they can deliver the service without being, I would say, pulled into left and right just to solve point solutions or point problems. Um, this is really the focus, and I'm happy to be part of this conversation.
yeah, Evo. So I mean, that reminds me, this company that I talked about before. Do you think that they wanted to learn how to do desktop virtualization. I mean, their best option was Vista laptops connecting in via the VPN, right? So they didn't have the bandwidth to react to COVID in a way that they were going to go and buy their servers, roll out vSphere, learn vSphere, right? Roll out Horizon, learn Horizon. This company needed desktop virtualization. They needed it fast, without all the time to learn it. That's what desktop as a service is for. That's what companies like Expedient are for. That's what these platforms are all about. Is delivering desktops fast and efficiently and keeping users productive, at the snap of a finger.
I mean, they were just hoping it was going to go away. And as we know, it
Yeah.
is not going to go away. They should never invest into going and create and have an expertise that in principle you can consume as a service without having the trouble to go through and all the OPEX and the training as AJ said before. I mean, no, never. Don't go that route. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So anyway, we can move on to the next slide. I mean, the idea here behind what we can do or we can help customers do, is to help take their weekends back. You know, the old way isn't sustainable. We I'm in marketing and I still pulled an all nighter over the last 18 months, right? To try to pull things together. Every IT person, I'm sure, has been burning the midnight oil trying to build a platform or to solve problems that were created by this increased demand in remote work. And there's a better way. And this Horizon DaaS is the core. Um, Evo, I'm going to rely on you for some color, background information here because, like I said, marketing guy, right? Like I can talk about this stuff, but Evo, you're the product manager, you know this. Um, Horizon has all of these enterprise class capabilities to help users stay productive, but also to help admins, uh, con- manage these environments in intuitive ways, so they don't have to be experts. When you use a platform, a DaaS platform like this, you don't already the underlying infrastructure is already taken care of for you. You as the customer, you still need ways to assign the users and manage the user environment and things like that, and these tools are built into the platform. User environment management that works with the FS Logics capabilities that are built into Windows. As you know, FS Logics solves the problems like roaming profiles and folder redirection and stuff like that, but it doesn't do application settings and enforcement and stuff. That's what Dynamic Environment Manager does from VMware, and that's included with VMware Horizon. App packaging through VMware App Volumes. We've got help desk capabilities. We've got instant clones. All of this stuff makes for an excellent admin experience and a quick, responsive end user experience. Anything to add there, either Expedient guys or Evo?
I would just expand on the concept of improving the end user experience. This is something Expedient was laser focused on. We dog fooded this to our own employees before we rolled it to any clients, and we employ nothing but a bunch of engineers who will tell us if anything is the least bit degraded. So we've had a very high focus on making sure our users have a great experience. That means very high clock speed CPUs. That means all flash storage to ensure that we're doing everything we can to improve the end user experience.
Yeah, I mean, imagine an entire company filled with people who want admin rights to their own machines all the time.
Right.
An entire company filled with people who get the calls on the weekends from mom to fix their iPad. That's what we are. And so for us, our user experience has to be top notch, or else we're just going to hear nothing but the end of it. So I think this platform takes all of the capabilities that Horizon itself has, but gives it a nice simple layer and abstracts all of the stuff that most people don't really want to deal with, in a really, really powerful way. And Evo, we've seen through our testing and dog fooding, and I've been on multiple meetings through our VDI platform. It's really, really powerful to be able to just click a button and get a desktop.
Key deliverable from a desktop as a service perspective was really keeping all the user experience. So the remoting, the ability to use an application like it's installed locally, while it is not and updated automatically. While keeping from a cloud provider perspective like yourselves, making it easy to manage and deliver the infrastructure that's supporting it without the customers being bothered with all those details. Doesn't make sense. They need to consume an app or a desktop. They should not be bothered by all the complexities that VDI brings. So that's my perspective from PM, and I'm pretty sure that is gonna stay.
Well, and that's our secret kind of across the board is, we want to make sure the users can be productive. We want to make sure the admins' lives are easier. We don't want to add work. We want to remove work. And so we've done that with, like we have on the left column there. We continue to do that through management and cost optimizations. Actually, can we go back really quick? Because we scratched the surface there a little bit. But there's a few things that I wanted to call out. Uh, I mentioned scalability and being able to turn this up on a dime. I mean, like I said, that customer example from before, with desktop as a service, they don't have to deploy their own infrastructure and worry about training and learning how to do that or hiring the FTEs to pull that off. Hiring a company like Expedient can make this the problem that they have go away very quickly. Um, touching back on the end user experience portion, from the Horizon client perspective, we've got clients that work on all the major endpoints. So, I mean, Mac, Linux, Windows, whatever the case may be, mobile, although trying to use a Windows app designed for a mouse and keyboard is difficult on an iPhone, but on larger format tablet devices or Chromebooks, things like that, we have full featured clients for all of those. Um, One of the primary use cases, not as a reactive thing to COVID, but because I think that's what most of this conversation has been on. But one of the more common use cases that we see from a strategic perspective is application co-location. Um, Meaning, if I have an application that has a backend, database, say, and a front end that's running in the end user desktop, those things work best if they're in the same location. So, if the application data is stored locally or in the company's headquarters, the application should be delivered from that company headquarters too. But if I separate those, if I start to put one in the cloud and I keep one on premise, and if I put the data in the cloud, I should say, and I put the application front end on premises or on a user's laptop or something, the user experience can suffer. So by putting them both in the same location, be that on premises or in the cloud or wherever, you get better application experience. You couple that with the hardware that AJ and the Expedient team talks about. That's really cool. You get the best possible user experience or best possible performance. Couple that with the Blast Extreme protocol that actually adapts to changing network conditions, which happens more and more on networks that are users installed instead of IT people installed. You can ensure that no matter where those users are, the coffee shop, in the attic, in the basement, in the office, wherever, they're getting the best possible experience. And then collaboration, AJ, you talked about teams and stuff earlier on here. Um, our team support, we have specific optimizations for that to help make the user experience that much better and keep users productive outside the four walls of the office, which hopefully contributed to why your boss was so happy and surprised at how everything worked out. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And that, I think, when we saw the Teams and even Zoom support that's out there, and we actually ran it ourselves, we went, oh, this is slick. Like, I saw it and I went, this is wizardry. And I've been on meetings and I'm like, yeah, by the way, this is coming through the VDI desktop. They're like, no, it's not. It's smooth. And I'm like, right, because of the way that it actually works. That offload is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you can even do virtual backgrounds and stuff with the Zoom. Like, it's really cool. I love the giving the demo when at the end of it you reveal that you were using Horizon the whole time. Um, so, and the last thing here is security, because obviously there's a lot of different ways that this can help you secure. It removes data from the endpoints. It can give, we can tie in with Workspace ONE Access to give SSO, so we can tie in all these other identity platforms, and we have line of sight access across the entire environment because all the applications and data are running from the same or being delivered from the same location. But also, it means that we don't have to worry about deploying unsecured endpoints or giving them full VPN access to our networks. So, Now we can move on. See, I knew I had a few more minutes there. You can go ahead and build this all the way out. So because it's similar to the first one. So where we want to land on this is that VMware Horizon is a modern platform that can deliver everything you need to support remote work now and into the future. That's going to make your life easier as an admin, and it's going to make your costs more predictable. And it will hopefully, hopefully allow you to get more sleep at night. Let's put it that way. It's got unique integrations with the underlying VMware software defined data center. So that's what enables things like app volumes and instant clones and things like that. And again, built on a whole trusted digital workspace platform from VMware EUC and with widespread customer satisfaction in every vertical you can think of.
I think one big last takeaway here also is you think of a company that has never done VDI before, they don't understand what it is, they've just managed laptops. They can go from that to fully commanding this platform in one day without really learning any new skill sets. I mean, I'm talking about look at 2 slides that tell you how to do a couple things about building images, and you're off to the races with your existing skill set, which is really important.
Yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, we've had customers with thousands of desktops that had no desktop virtualization before, and were able to deploy thousands of desktops within a very short period of time to support work from home efforts. I'm sure you guys have similar, customers called and talked to you specifically about like their need to support remote work. It's really quite amazing how fast these things can be deployed and how quickly we can reduce the workload on organizations that are scrambling.
One of my favorite things was a conversation we had with a customer where they said, let's talk about VDI and, cost. And by the way, what's the cost per desktop? Because we're trying to compare TCO with getting rid of our office. And I went, oh, I don't know that, I don't know that our pricing really is a worry when you're dealing with real estate agreements, but sure, let's talk this all the way through, right? So there's a number of additional TCO sort of conversations to have beyond just laptop versus virtual desktop. It's laptop and office space versus virtual desktop and being able to work from anywhere. And I think really one of the cool things here, and Evo and Gabe, thank you very, very much for all of the thoughts here around how Horizon really plays into this. And we did a lot of research. Honestly, we took a look at a lot of different platforms, and Horizon was the one that had all of the features necessary to truly enable that remote workspace. We looked at a lot of them, we've tried a lot of them, and only Horizon had the real capabilities that we needed to be able to go forward around that. And I think when we look at this, we can talk about this all through slideware, but I think we kind of need to actually go see this in action. So much action that you actually get to watch me log in. But when we actually look through the Horizon Cloud interface, all of the infrastructure behind this platform is already taken care of, like we've said a number of times here. So when you sign on, this is what you get. You get to go directly to the console. And when we log in, we initially see our dashboard. We can see that we have a pool of resources with 39% of CPU and memory allocated, and about 6% is actually being used right now. This is one of our lab environments, so it's not exactly the one that's being hit the most. One of the things I love is the ability to see all of the activity across the platform, because one of the challenges is I can't connect to my desktop, or I couldn't get into my things. All of this is able to be logged. So this is when I did a restart earlier. So I was trying to connect to the desktop as it was restarting, and it said VMware Tools isn't running. So I can troubleshoot, and as part of my troubleshooting, see that I was trying to connect in and I couldn't, and this was why, right? So I have this great activity report to see. And if I click export report, it dumps it into the overall reports dashboard. Speaking of that reports dashboard, I have a number of different ways to see what desktops and what users are connected to those. So I can see that at the top here, I have a number of different desktops and pools that I'm assigned to, and what size all of those desktops are, and what desktops that I may be using inside of that. So I can see from the user standpoint what desktops they're mapped to, which is kind of hard when you have a bunch of different pools and you're trying to track all of that down. Here's a way for you to go see all of that. But if I want to flip that around, I can see from the desktop standpoint what user is assigned to that. So I can see that I have This desktop here is mine D0001. This is the desktop that I'm on right now. But I can also see who's connected and who's been assigned to each of these other desktops and what users have been mapped to those. I also have the ability to see all of my agent versions and UEM agents across all of my virtual desktops. So right now we've got everything pretty cleanly built in here. So all of my agents are the same. But my UEM agents are all the same here as well. And I can export this data through this button back into my exported reports. So if I want to see this maybe desktop mapping report, click on it, click download, little zip file comes up. It's a 1K file. And it has the same data that's inside of the view that I just saw, but I can sort it however I'd like to inside of Excel and get that report into a place where I can, mess with it and do calculations and things off of it. One of the other things that we see in here is assignments. And assignments are, in the traditional Horizon parlance, desktop pools. So this is, again, a very simplified interface because you don't need to see all of the knobs that are on the back end, the status of all the servers, because as providers, we have access to that and maintain that for you, so you don't have to focus on that. So in here, I can click on this SKWD. I can see the assignment name and all the settings around it. So this is an extra medium desktop, which means that it gets 2 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM. And it's a traditional clone, not an instant clone. I can also see all of the end users who are assigned or mapped to this. So some of them are groups, some of them are individual users like me, and what image that this is attached to. I can also go into the desktops and see all of them. So I'm going to pick on this 000 desktop, and I'm going to click more, and I'm going to click launch console. And I can actually pull up the console of that VM from inside of the tenant admin. So if you need to do help desk support, a user calls you and says, hey, I need help with this, you can open the console of that virtual desktop from inside the interface and not have to jump through a bunch of hoops to go do that. You also have the ability to restart, shut down, and do all of the various power operations that go along with that. I can even see user activity per assignment. So the same thing you saw before was at the top layer. This one only shows me the user activity for this assignment. One of my other favorite features is the imported VMs capability. If you're an existing Horizon user and you would like to not deal with connection servers and security servers and load balancers and all the things that I mentioned before, I'm going to give you a massive easy button, and it is this import desktop option, because you can take your existing gold image and bring it as an OVA file into our platform and deploy it directly and create new pools with your existing gold image without needing to make any real changes. And so that gives you the ability to turn an entire view environment up with next to no effort, because you're able to just take your gold image and go. You can also do things with the images. Like I can create a new image based on an existing desktop. So if I pick, say, my desktop here, I can see that it's on, it's active, and I can create an image based off of this desktop and what I've installed inside of it to be able to build new desktop pools and assignments off of it. We can also see capacity. So you can see your total allocation of CPU and RAM that you have assigned in the platform and what's taking up all your space. So you can see that most of my desktops are extra medium desktops. I have 492 gigs of RAM of available standard desktop capacity and 60 gigahertz of CPU available. And we can even dive into how many imported VMs we have, how many extra medium VMs and CPUs that we're actually using. So there's a number of different capabilities to see all of this, and you can download a full report of your capacity and see what's using what to make sure you're allocating your space properly. Inside of settings, we have general settings. And the big one here is session timeout. This is the one that most users and admins want to change, because this one depends on how your users actually work. Maybe you want your users to all get booted every night and have to re-log in every morning to make sure that you have consistent authentication, or that you don't have desktops that are just sitting there doing nothing all day. But you may want to extend your idle user timeout because you have a call center and they get 15-minute breaks. And you want them to use their full 15-minute break, but not have to re-log in and re-log into all of their applications afterwards. You can extend that idle user timeout from 15 minutes to, say, 25 minutes to allow those users to have a better user experience day in and day out. We also integrate to Active Directory, and as part of our deployment, you deploy a domain controller on our platform. And so that allows for very fast authentication. That allows for the computer accounts to get created in a really, really fast fashion. But it also means that your domain controller is local. So all of that latency is gone. So you have all of these capabilities right next to your existing desktops, and those land as utility VMs. And so you register those Active Directory in here so that every single time it's always pointing at that domain controller and you're able to get to what you need to. This also pushes out the primary and secondary DNS. So you have all of that baked in as part of the deployments. And finally, the utility VMs, we don't have any in our lab, but these are things like file servers, image servers, domain controllers, DHCP, any sort of network infrastructure. You can deploy utility VMs into this platform for local access and have them in here and give them all of the management. So things like restart, shutdown, power off, power on, and launch console, and pull all of that up from inside of this interface. And that gives you a ton of capabilities on how to use this. And then there's also the getting started page. So if you ever get lost or you forget if you deployed something, you can configure all of the getting started, go through all the getting started things and make sure that everything is set up right the first time. Thanks, Evo, for having this sort of thing in there because it makes it super simple to get started. And again, this is a Windows desktop, right? So we have some capabilities in here like the Horizon Performance Tracker, so I can see what my round trip latency is from my end user client all the way back to the desktop itself, how much bandwidth I have between me and my desktop, the encoder being used, transport, how much CPU I'm utilizing. I can see session properties to see, how much I'm actually using, all of the various things that are inside of here. So I can see inside of the desktop itself a bunch of additional details. But as I mentioned earlier, we have a number of additional capabilities and things that we've enabled. So things like Zoom. I can start a new meeting and it's going to pick up from my camera at the top, and you can see how smooth this video is. This video is not going into my virtual desktop. In fact, if you look at Task Manager, it's not doing anything because up there, all of this audio and video is being sent directly from my endpoint to Zoom and back to my endpoint and being painted over the top of the client. So it's actually not utilizing any CPU or any additional memory to push 1080p video into and out of Zoom. And the same thing happens inside of Teams, where I can have my settings go to devices and I can see the same sort of crystal clear video inside of this preview. The task manager is not doing anything that Teams doesn't already do itself when it's trying to pull in new messages. Again, almost no CPU utilized based on having all of this additional video. And this is a really, really powerful way to access a virtual desktop platform without any sort of compromise. You can install the full Office suite in here and utilize this day in and day out with full dual monitor support. If you're on a Mac, you can use full Retina quality. And all of this is being done in a super smooth way with very, very high performance capabilities. And when we talk about this architecture, it is again a fully managed virtual desktop infrastructure as a service that's multi-tenant by design, but you can get dedicated hosts. If you are a bank, financial services, healthcare, anything with sensitive data, and you really need to have that guaranteed to not have any other tenants with any remote possibility of touching it, this is the way to go about doing that. You can have dedicated hosts so that all of your data is good and away from literally anyone else. The multi-tenancy is very, very secure by itself, but some companies want to go above and beyond. We're also GPU capable. So if you want to bring in CAD or high graphics need users, we can install GPUs into our hosts and you get access to those GPUs and get that high graphics capability without any of the additional headache. Also, as you saw, the optimized audio and video with Teams and Zoom. So you're able to take advantage of video conferencing across our platform. And we're willing to work with you on things like WebEx or any other video service that you're using to figure out the best way to get that up and running on our platform. And again, it's available from anywhere on any device. We use the same Horizon client. I was just using the Mac client, but Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android, any of the general thin clients that Horizon supports are all supported in the same manner here. So you get all of the performance with all flash hyperconverged storage, high clock speed CPUs with a predictable monthly cost, no egress fees, a 100% SLA, and 24/7 support. And Anthony, This really builds on top of all of the work that we've done for the last 15 to 20 years on building our VMware cloud out, and this brings it to that next level.
Right. Yeah. Over the years, Expedient has gotten very, very good at building infrastructure and specifically infrastructure running VMware software to deliver a great experience to our clients. And in doing a desktop as a service, we took all that expertise and we just focused it on desktop, and we built an infrastructure that does nothing but run desktops, and it is very good at running desktops. And importantly, it allows Expedient to focus on what we are good at, which we believe allows the client to focus on what they are good at, and then we can ultimately deliver them the best support experience along with a performant desktop. I think throughout this presentation we've talked a lot about a few things, and it's a couple concepts that we've tried to enable, which is high performance, meaning your users are going to have as good as, if not a better experience than they have today. Ease of consumption, ease of usage, and making sure that this is not only a cost effective, but also a cost predictable solution for our clients.
And that predictability is the key there. We don't want to have, egress fees and weird networking and things that end up costing you a lot more money than you were previously considering before. What we want to do is be able to have our users focus on what they're good at. But we also want to focus on what we're good at, and that's providing services to our users. So we also offer fully managed identity, firewall, antivirus, and file services to our desktops with zero admin patching. So you don't have to go patch the file server or the antivirus platform or identity platform or even the firewall. You get to focus on providing the value, which is what firewall rules and policies are important to you, how are you protecting your end users, and how are those users accessing their storage. And these platforms aren't buy upfront for $1 million and then use a percentage of it with the hope that you use all of your headroom someday. The platform can start small and grow with you. Again, you don't have to buy that 20 to 30% headroom. You can just get started. If you need a terabyte of storage, you can get a terabyte of storage. That's it. I mean, when you need to go from 1 terabyte to 5 terabytes, we can upgrade that at no additional effort. It's that simple. And it's also extendable to multiple clouds and even on premises. So when you need to have your filer on premises in your office, but also in Azure and in our cloud, we can provide that no matter where it is and provide a consistent user experience across all of it. Because that's what we're really about here, is those end-to-end capabilities from user to cloud, powered by Expedient and the VMware stack. We have secure, consistent user and user experiences with Expedient Enterprise Workspace, a VMware-powered cloud for your mission-critical workloads that is fully VMware-based from the bottom to the top. So when you bring in your virtual machines, they run the exact same way that they ran on premises with no egress fees, 100% SLA, and 24/7 support, and multi-cloud management to manage your applications no matter where they are, whether that's AWS, Azure, GCP, with cost optimization, automation, compliance, all of the things that you need to make sure that you are being successful and most cost effective inside of hyperscale clouds. We can also provide management tools around those. Because again, that is the true power of a full stack cloud service provider. We have co-location for those legacy workloads, our enterprise cloud, backups as a service, disaster recovery as a service, cloud native, and enterprise workspace. So from an end-to-end standpoint, we're able to help you focus on what matters to you and not just keeping the lights on. And Anthony, I think adding an enterprise workspace and our end user computing platform has been kind of the last sort of piece to fall into place.
Yeah, it is. We've been waiting for this one for a while. We wanted to make sure we got it right, but we feel that we can help our clients run their server workloads anywhere they need to very consistently. And this was the last piece we needed plugged in because ultimately somebody has to interact with those applications, and we need to deliver a good experience when doing that. And that is really what Enterprise Workspace is geared to do.
And Gabe and Evo, I mean, this is, from a VMware Cloud Provider standpoint, we've been deep partners with VMware for probably close to 15 years now, 14, 15 years now. And I think that as we go, adding in the Horizon DaaS platform really brings it to that next level and shows that full power of what VMware is capable of as well.
Yeah, and your dedication to the things that the geeks would like, right? The performance, the top notch CPUs and memory and storage and all of that stuff, I think really helps too. So you're using the VMware best of breed platform, and you're adding to that all of the services and capabilities and this dedication to performance that you guys have. I like where this is going.
And Evo, I mean, when we originally talked about Horizon DaaS, it was like, oh, wait, this is the thing that makes the most sense. And I'm really glad to see that VMware is continuing to show love to the service providers, even on the end user computing space.
Well, I mean, for me, from a product perspective, you guys are the core of the focus. So it's really where I'm extremely happy to see presentations like this because it gives you it gives me again, of course, the feeling, okay, what we're doing is the right way, and we'll continue on that path.
I want to thank Gabe and Evo for joining us today. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your VM world experience. Please do me a favor, take those surveys. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and make sure to take your surveys. That helps us, be able to build better sessions for next year's VM world. Hopefully, we get to see everyone in person. And I want to thank you all for joining, and we hope you have a great rest of your VM world.